Hello guys and welcome to Communist Lo-Fi. I just want to make a quick commentary since I have a slow day at work. And that phenomena of Twitch streamers to me is a little bit odd really. I'm not the type of person who is used to watching hours and hours of content of just a person speaking a lot of BS and expecting to get tipped for it or get tipped for playing video games. I mean, nothing against that. I mean, it's your money. But especially, if the content was maybe of any quality, like if I had the money, maybe I would tip. But yeah, I don't have any money for that. So I don't even own a Twitch account. I don't have Twitch. I don't see any Twitch. The only Twitch streamers I'm a little bit acquainted to are the ones that indirectly I hear when some other Marxist content creator makes a critique about them. And one I particularly dislike is Hasan Piker. Why do I dislike him? First of all, is because he's the typical he's a typical kind of guy that all of his opportunities come from having a certain guy in your family helping you out, getting you the spot on the job. Like his nephew of that guy, Cenk Uygur, who is like this liberal guy associated with that Young Turks channel, which was leftist leaning. I mean, now it was garbage then because they didn't have a Marxist perspective on anything, but now it's even worse than garbage. But anyway, what I mean is this guy he's supposed to be a graduate in political philosophy or something similar, or political science. Yet all of his takes and his videos are as basic and as superficial as you can get on Marxism. I have never watched him explain. I don't watch that guy. I hate that guy. But the few videos I watch of him, like I focus on videos where he was explaining theory, and he talks and talks and talks and goes on a tangent and doesn't say anything. He cannot concisely summarize a Marxist concept, and he usually uses somebody else's video, somebody else's explanation, and just comments on it. It's like he doesn't have any grasp of theory or any fundamental knowledge of Marxism in any way that is useful. Like he cannot by himself explain dialectics, or by himself even explain the labor theory of value, which are not that complicated concepts. He always has to watch somebody else do it, like a video of somebody explaining labor theory of value, and then he will comment on it. A video of somebody else explaining dialectics or dialectical materialism or historical materialism, and then he will comment on it. It's like you can clearly tell he doesn't know his theory. When I compare the type of videos that he makes with guys like Socialism for All, Finnish Bolshevik, when you see, I don't talk to that guy, I have never talked to the guy, but when you see Finnish Bolshevik talk with somebody, he doesn't constantly has to stop and review what he's talking about. He knows his concepts. When you listen to Socialism for All bringing something up, he's not constantly checking somebody else's video and making comments on it. Like, he knows his stuff. He can explain to you the basic tenets of Marxism and Marxism-Leninism, So Hasan Piker is this democratic socialist, left-leaning millionaire, nephew of some rich guy who got into streaming, and Jesus Christ. I mean, the type of people that this guy has as an audience are people who are interested in the left, I think, but mostly American people who don't read. They don't like to read. They're lazy enough that they want to hear about socialism, but they don't want to penetrate into the study of socialism. They want to use kind of a superficial, silly analysis of whatever is going on politically in their country with kind of a leftist lens. So whatever is criticizing the right, they are all for it, but they don't understand that they should be capable to analyze the situation themselves with a Marxist framework, if you understand dialectics, historical materialism, etc., if you have the fundamentals of Marxism, Leninism, if you understand dialectics, if you understand materialism, if you understand basic concepts of Marxist critique of capitalism, etc., you can make your own analysis on these things, and then, yeah, for sure, you can add to your analysis from somebody else's point of view. You can contrast their conclusions to yours, but you have the lens to be able to do this by yourself. And what I noticed from this type of his audience are like it's too basic. It's like it's people who don't read at all. It's people who, my God, how can they see 40 minutes of this guy like talking nonsense and just getting angry? It's like having somebody with like some type of bipolar disorder explain to you a concept in the most superficial way. He's like always screaming, always cursing out of nowhere. Like he doesn't have anything of value to say or to add. If you want to learn from it, then just watch the damn original video instead of just like having this guy try to filter it for you when he doesn't do a good job at it. And the fact that he's this type of privileged kind of guy who got into his business due to his family, etc. All of his jobs seem to almost have been given to him because of his connections. It makes me wonder how critical is his audience when you don't even understand that this guy is a millionaire, that he has a sports car and a mansion on the tips that you give him, on his terrible analysis, on nothing of merit, no contribution to a cause in any way except entertaining some fools for 30 or 40 minutes a day. I mean, Jesus Christ, I'm an atheist, just an expression. But isn't there a way like that you can like wake up and see this guy for who he truly is? He seems like emotionally mature. I've seen videos on this guy on the internet getting absolutely scared if a fan approaches him, like scared like a little boy. My God, this guy's crazy. He has like this celebrity complex. He seems like a very cowardly kind of guy, ignorant, and yet he seems to get the most angry with the type of news that, is normal news. Like this video has been all over the internet where he criticizes the media for saying that some privileged teenagers shouldn't have destroyed the newsstand of some guy in New York. And he said, oh, the media, I hate the media, they should die. Like this guy has like no critical way of thinking, no rational way of thinking. He answers to everybody in his comment section like die. Like literally, this guy is mentally ill. Maybe even mentally it will be giving him too much credit, I guess. He's like just petty, selfish, idiotic, ignorant, like all the bad things that you could develop from growing in a privileged capitalist society. So when I watch his videos, and my God, when I had to watch a couple of his videos just to comment on them, and it's terrible. I mean, watch somebody else. Go watch Politstorm, Jason Unruh, finish Bolshevik, Dessalines, hear some audiobooks. I mean, read. Jesus Christ, it's terrible. Man, the other day I was listening to a very good audiobook in the Marxist-Leninist Theory channel, which is a very good channel you should follow. And it was a text by Derzhinsky on communist ethics. And it was a really interesting text, a subject that is not often touched on Marxism, which is Marxist ethics, how we justify our view on ethics, and I complemented that with a reading on one chapter of Engels Anti-Düring, because Derzhinsky mostly talks about his personal ethics and how they relate how he has developed these ethics from his involvement in furthering the Marxist cause. And he talks about his concern for children, and how in capitalist society we are taught to constrain our love just to the people who we are family with. And he says, you know what, I think I can love even more the kids that are not mine than those that would be mine. And I really like that way of thinking, in which you understand that the whole of humanity is one big family, and capitalism usually tries to instill in you to restrict your love to your direct family. And when he commented on that, I thought that was really beautiful. So when I was reading this chapter on Engels anti-Dühring, he was criticizing Dühring's conception of ethics as like the normal capitalist conception of ethics in idealism, which is like there's an absolute truth for all eternity. There's an absolute ethics that exists, independent of culture, history, and time, somewhere, in the Platonic realm. Like there is an absolute truth, and there is an absolute correct way of living your life ethically and stuff like that, like the Kantian conception of these fundamental principles. And Engels was just laughing at this type of stupid observation. And basically the gist of the text was that history teaches us that ethics is conditional to the particular historic time and the way of production of a society. The ethics that we derive, they don't come from thinking in a certain way, or someone's liking of something or disliking of something. They come from the direct mode of production. So he puts as an example, whenever we live in primitive communism and there wasn't any private property, just communal property, there weren't any laws or ethics against stealing. As soon as people develop cattle raising and private property was invented, and individuals were allowed to own cattle, then all the law in all the civilizations that do this starts to say, don't steal. The commandment would be not steal, not kill. Whenever you're forcing monogamy, then the commandment is don't be an adulterer, obviously just for men, etc. So most of these points Engels actually touches on them on his book of the origin of the family, private property and the state, which I think is a fundamental, entertaining read for any Marxist. It gives you the core fundamental knowledge of human history from a sociology point of view, from an anthropological point of view. You can really assess the different stages of development of society and how their modes of production relates in how their interpersonal and romantic relationships are defined, how the family is defined by the different modes of production of society. So Engels was criticizing Dühring and saying that there isn't an absolute truth that is of any relevance when it comes to ethics. Like Engels said, okay, you can have an absolute truth in very, very, very specific fields of certain sciences, but even like if you say 2 + 2 will always be 4 in it for eternity, that's an absolute truth. But Engels, okay, says that's fine, that's an absolute truth that is so limited in its application that is a platitude. It's like something that is repeated unnecessarily. I mean, that that 2 + 2 is 4 is not going to help you run your society or live your life outside of the context of doing arithmetic. You needed to do basic arithmetic, but it's not going to tell you what the correct political system is. It's not going to tell you what the correct way of living your life is. And even in mathematics, a lot of the concepts are still being worked on, further developed. Even in the hard sciences and the exact sciences, new discoveries are always widening our field of knowledge and what we don't know. So Engels is not saying like everything is absolutely relative, we can never know anything, but he knows that our knowledge is constantly expanding, and the very few things that you can have absolute truths on, 2 plus 2 is 4, all men die, these kind of axioms that are so basic and silly that that's the field of absolute truths, that's the field of eternity. You cannot do much with that outside of its particular field. But for historical human development, when you're talking about the correct political system, the correct analysis of a social situation, you need to understand that things are in constant change and motion, and you need to have the correct methodology to analyze that change from a materialist dialectical perspective. And if you think there are absolute truths in sociology or anthropology or in political science, then you are a complete idiot. You need to understand that all this type of ethics change through society, and that doesn't mean they're random. It's not irrelevant. It's like just because the position of a ship changes whenever it's crossing the sea, it doesn't mean it cannot be calculated, but it just means that the position needs to be recalculated every time the ships move to give an accurate estimation of the location of the ship. So ethics and all sort of ideological constructs, they don't come out of randomness, and they don't come out of nowhere, and they are not irrelevant, or they aren't always purely relative to an individual, like, oh, I have my own ethics, everything else doesn't matter, or everyone can invent their own ethics. Ethics work both at a personal and societal level. So we need to understand ethics change, human systems change, superstructure like religion, laws, philosophy change, but the fact that they change in a period of time doesn't mean that you cannot draw conclusions from those particular conditions you're living in at the moment. You can for sure have an ethics based on class struggle. Marxist ethics are based on the understanding that we want a classless society. So that is an ethics derived from a particular social context of class struggle. It doesn't mean that our ethics are irrelevant or absolutely biased or subjective, but they respond to a particular societal time and condition and a material condition. And we need to understand that once we reach a classless society, the ethics that we live on will probably also suffer a change. We will probably have other goals besides a classless society once we achieve that. So we need to understand all these kind of things changes, but doesn't mean everything is absolutely relative and meaningless. It just means that we need to be able to read the time we live in with the proper tools, and that tool is Marxism-Leninism. So that was basically my thought on that. Oh my god, how you guys can't listen to that Hasan Piker guy is disgusting. He's disgusting as a person. I think he panders to his audience. Another video I was watching of him is where he was claiming to be gay, but he's not a homosexual. He's not part of that community. And I would think that it's like you have a liberal audience, and let's say black people are oppressed, and I wouldn't claim to be black to understand and be able to explain the grievances that this community is having. I don't have to do that. I can, from Marxist perspective, actually attack the root of the issue of racism and capitalism and how they intertwine to create these conditions of oppression for the black community in particular. But I wouldn't have to say I'm black. I think he almost banalizes the condition, because if you are part of the LGBT community, you have probably suffered some type of discrimination or social isolation, and to banalize it by having a guy who hasn't gone honestly through that, claiming even as a joke to be part of that group, I think is quite disgusting. It's like you can tell a person by the kind of people he chooses to socialize with. And this Hasan Piker guy is friend with this other guy called Ethan Klein, which I didn't know before, but is another complete idiot. I was watching a podcast of Ethan Klein where he claims to be an ally of the LGBT community, and then a man calls in who identifies as part of that community and says to him, you shouldn't classify people as top or bottom because it's kind of disrespectful. And the guy is totally right. I mean, you cannot reduce a person to their sexuality. They are human beings, complete human beings, and everybody should be respected as seen as a complete human being. You shouldn't be reduced to a particular sexual preference. That's not all of what you are. And you cannot make assumptions either. Like, you cannot call somebody a bottom or a top. That's almost a way of capitalism wanting to denigrate people by trying to use those terms without actually having the guts to be a complete homophobe and insulting them. Whatever your sexual preference is, if I were this or that, I wouldn't like to be reduced to like an expression of sexuality that is not who I am as a human being, in the sense of it's not who I am. That's a sexual action. You don't go to a straight guy or a straight woman and says, "Oh, are you a swaller or a spitter?" You don't go to a woman or you can say that to them. And you don't know to a guy and you reduce them to, are you a, I don't know, like are you like, I don't know what kind of stupid reduction I can make of, let's say, straight guys. Like, do you like fat girl? Are you a fat girl lover? Or I think, it's kind of stupid to try to reduce a person to a sexual preference in a manner that is trying to deny who they are as human beings. You are more than that. And that question, first of all, is personal. Second of all, is disrespectful. It's totally disrespectful, is what usually these liberal types do. They pretend they're allies of a certain community, but in their inner conception, they still dislike these people. They still judge them. They still feel superior to them. Ethan Klein was calling the guy, "Oh, I know you're bottom from your voice." How disrespectful and hateful you have to be to treat somebody like that. I can't even imagine, saying that to somebody. Something that is, first of all, again, personal. Second of all, is not important to the conversation that is being had. I'm sorry, my English sucks. That is trying to be in the conversation that is trying to take place. It's not important or relevant. What was relevant is that this person was asking for dignity and respect, and Ethan Klein answered to them in a disgusting way, like a hypocrite, and worse than a hypocrite, like a hateful, disgusting person. So Hasan Abi is friends with this guy. You can tell a lot by the people you associate with. If I'm a Marxist Leninist, I will not do a podcast with a liberal. I will not do a podcast with a fascist. I won't do a podcast with a MAGA guy, or with a patriotic type, or with a conspiracy theorist, or with someone as idiotic as Joe Rogan, who is basically jumping between being a liberal and a right winger. And both are disgusting ways of being. But I remember even in between their own communities, there are like, I remember a podcast, a clip I saw of Joe Rogan. It was interviewing a right winger who was also homosexual, and Joe Rogan, all he talked about in the podcast was sexual things. He was talking in the most crass way you can talk about sex, talking about semen, anal sex in a way. You know, a lot of things that Jesus Christ, is this how he sees this person? I hate the other guy because he was a right-winger and fascist, but he, I am not going to bring those topics up. It's not relevant to a conversation. It's not the type of image I have of a person it's not despite, it's independent of their sexual orientation. I'm not going to reduce you to, okay, you're gay, I can only talk to you about penises. You're gay, I can only talk to you about top and bottom. I can only talk to you about, it's like, it's disgusting that you kind of try to reduce people to these cliches and demean them in that way. They are human beings. We are human beings. Everybody's a human being. Can you just accept? They cannot accept this because they, on their inner conception of themselves, they think they are superior to gay people, even if they supposedly are okay with it and defend it. In their inner self, Ethan Klein, Joe Rogan, and by association probably Hasan Abi as well, by faking trying to be gay, they feel it's such a banal thing. You can say they won't be offended, nothing to be offended about. But what you're actually doing is you're dehumanizing these people, reducing them to one aspect of their lives, and doing it in a way that it only promotes your own sense of self-worth. Like you're better than them because you don't do anal sex. You're better than them because you're not a bottom. You're better than them because you truly are not gay. But you try to gain their trust and their viewership by claiming to be gay, by acting gay. It's like probably all the social exclusion and judgment these people go through is serious, and I feel no sense of compassion, basic human compassion, to understand their grievances. It's just more like another talking point in their political agenda. So I think all of these people are disgusting human beings. Ethan Klein, Joe Rogan, Hasan Abi, just disgusting. They're Hasan Abi in particular, this spoiled rich brat who knows nothing about Marxism or very little about it, making millions out of it. It's just like, again, a mega church preacher with helicopters and $1,000 sneakers preaching about poverty. There's, from a Marxist-Leninist point of view, Lenin, if he had that money, he wouldn't be doing what Hasan Abi is doing. If Derzhinsky had that money, he wouldn't be doing what Hasan Abi is doing. I mean, it's disgusting. So that's my take for the day. Thank you guys. Like and subscribe if you want more.